Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the problems that are showing up with modern day writing. We're going to continue to use this cause and effect board because I feel like it's pretty good. It kind of shows the different things that can happen. But let's talk about what are the major effects that we've been seeing right now, and I would call this effect. Um, let's call this effect. The social media. Well, no, it's kind of cause. We'll call this the over explaining effect. So, what's been causing this? And this actually has a very serious cause. A lot of people these days aren't really interested in watching things from beginning to end, which is sad because watching stuff is actually really fun, right? So why aren't movies as interesting now as they were before? Well, this is caused mainly by social media. Um, when you're in theaters or things like this, and I've seen this in theaters, it actually absolutely boggles my mind. It's like you pay all this money to go to a theater, and then you just see people sitting there with their phones in hand, watching YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever. Um, and it's really kind of made it so like movies have to be overly easy to follow. So social media has caused um, movies have to be easy to follow. Because if the movie's not easy to follow, people will lose their way. They'll not really understand what's going on, and it kind of ruins the movie for them. Well, what does that do to everyone else? Well, for everyone else who does understand the movie, have been following it from the beginning, it's boring to everyone else. So no one goes and watches these movies because it's just boring. Like when I sit down and I saw this happen um, in the last season of Stranger Things a lot and things like that. You start to see these people and they're talking, and then all of a sudden, like, well, what's going on? And then they explain it to me like I'm 3 years old. But that's because there's people who've been on their phone the whole time, and they might catch this once, and they're like, okay, now I know what's going on. But what's lame about that is like, I know this. Why are you telling it to me again? And as soon as you start saying things for a second time, it becomes very boring. Um, I like to think that I'm a pretty smart guy, that I can figure out things. I think most of the human population can do that. And this comes from when I was reading books when I was a kid. Like when you read books when you're a kid, or literally any time, and you figure something out before the ending, like that is a really strong thing. Like, for instance, this happened to me when I was reading the original Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. When I was reading that book, uh, it dropped hints all the time that there wasn't something quite right with Professor Quirrell, but it made big hints that Snape was a bad guy, right? And so, like, you think that Snape's the one who's done all this thing, Snape's done this, Snape's done that. But when it came right down to it, I was like, I don't really trust Professor Quirrell. He's too timid for the position that he's in, right? Normally, you have to have a level of um, or a level of ability to be able to get into a position like that. But he's in that position, and he seems so lacking confidence, so lacking this, so lacking that. I was always really like concerned about him. And when the ending happened of that book, and if you haven't read that book by now, and this is a spoiler for you, um, maybe pause it and read the book first and then come back. But I mean, it's many years old now, so please figure it out. But basically, what ended up happening, he was not the main bad guy, but he was basically carrying a version of the main bad guy, basically in part, like as a part of him, which was unique. Obviously, I didn't see that coming, but it left enough hints to know that. something was wrong with this guy, but also enough hints to know that um, the things that were wrong with this guy, you wouldn't know. It's too far beyond the scope or the understanding since it is a magic world. And that was a great part about it. It's like things that I don't know can be put into here. Really great writing, but they didn't spell it out for me at the end. They didn't have to say, oh, this and this. But when you see the end, you see all the things that you made you really suspicious of him all the way through, and you felt accomplished. You felt connected to this. There's a reason why these books were so heavily loved when they first came out. They sold out everything like that. And the movies too were big financial successes because they really went along with what was in the books. But nowadays, when you see anything come out, you see this whole social media, the over explaining sort of thing. Another cause of this is uh, shorter attention spans. And I don't. This is what I think. They think that everyone has shorter attention spans, so because of social media, so we just need to make it boring so they can kind of understand it. Well, that's actually going to backfire on you because when we're sitting down to watch a movie, even if we have shorter attention spans, well, what are we doing with that shorter attention span? We're going to something that requires us to sit down, pay attention, or we'll miss something. Someone else will have a really good experience and we miss out. And even as a kid, like I remember doing that when I was a kid. A movie or something would be on that my parents were watching, but as a little kid, you got a lot of energy, so you're running around and you miss things from the movie and you felt left out. So you actually go back to watch it again and again and again. And you end up liking these movies a lot because of the small nuances. So, because we think that these people have shorter attention spans, they're not going to watch our movie. That is just so backwards thinking. Because what you should be doing is punishing them for their short attention spans to lengthen those spans because you want to see that everyone's good. There's going to be a lot of people who watch these things all the way through and they're going to sing the praises of it if you make a good movie. But if you make it for short attention spans, no one's going to like it. So what you're basically doing is you're taking an idea. So you're taking like what is the phrase? You're stealing from Peter to feed Paul, basically, sort of an idea where you're taking from someone who could basically run the company, do things better, and you're stealing from them, taking the things that they have, and you're giving it to someone else who's not going to do anything for your company at all. You're basically just robbing yourself. And I'm not sure why companies have decided that since everyone's going to be on their phones that they should do this because it's super backwards thinking. You're a long form sort of thing and people like you because of what you have and you're taking that away from them. You're shooting yourself in the foot. It's really dumb. It's really really bad and something that I definitely want to talk about. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and click over here, scroll on down to this next part here. So let's talk about another effect here that I'm seeing with recent issues that we're seeing here that the companies are having, and that's that you're just seeing a tremendous amount of self inserts, self self inserts, self um, fulfillment, things like that. And this definitely ties to a lot of the causes that are happening because you won't see these problems in things outside of America, really, when it comes right down to it. You will see this if you look into British movies or things like that, but you won't see it in in like Japanese stuff. You won't see it Chinese stuff. You won't see it. And that's because they kind of know more about what's required to make a civilization necessarily run. And Hollywood is definitely part of the left side of the board. And the left side of the board, like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. They used to have like pretty dang good ideas. Like their ideas were, we need to make sure that people are getting what they want and things that they need. But now we're living in a sort of situation where people do have what they need. So where they got to go now? Well, they got to go further and further. Well, now that we have all our needs met, what's the next thing? Well, let's say we need our emotional needs met. Now, there's a huge problem with this. When we're meeting emotional needs, and we're just giving everyone everything that they could want, well, that comes with severe side effects. And you've all heard about, oh, spoiled child, sin, this your child's so spoiled because you give them everything. Well, that's kind of where we're sitting at this point. If you don't have food, they'll give you money to eat. If you don't have this, they'll give you that. You don't have a home, well, they'll give you a home to live in. They give you rent control. They give you A, B, C, D. So all your needs are met. Well, then you can just have your emotional needs. Well, that if you're fulfilling your emotion, just their emotional needs at this point, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're never going to fulfill everyone's emotional needs. You're definitely not fulfilling mine. I'll tell you that much for free. Uh, but why is that happening? Why aren't our needs being met? So so that the reason why is because when they are trying to fulfill your emotional needs, they're trying to meet those emotional needs. Well, they're not meeting your emotional needs, they're meeting their emotional needs. And if everyone in there is kind of on a far left, and let's be honest, they aren't living a real life, not like what a normal person lives. And that's bad on a lot of levels. So if they're not living a real life, well, what are they doing? Right? Well, they're basically creating a world that no one can live in except for themselves. Now, when you create the fake world, well, we'll just call this the fake world. When we're creating the fake world, the problem with the fake world is that it's not where a real person lives. Um, and that's going to take us out a little bit. Like, and I want to go back to the whole Harry Potter sort of idea. Harry Potter is a fake world for by a long shot. We obviously don't have witches and wizards running around. We don't have people who can do magic spells, cast things, and kill you instantly. Those don't exist. Well, if that's the case, then why do we feel such an attachment to it? Because the world may be fake, but there are real people in it. And so when you create a fake world, there are no real people in it. Now, maybe in Hollywood, the people that exist there exist like the boss babe type of person. Honestly, a terrible trope that we see. The guy who bends over backwards for every single emotional need that you feel. Uh, Guys aren't that clever. Guys are more dense, and you should write them thusly. But you should also not, I mean, that's something they should definitely not have, is the ability to just bend over backwards. But they also shouldn't be weak and pathetic as well. Like, I saw some interesting recently, and this kind of set me off on this. It was a video about a guy and a woman in an elevator, and the guy reaches out and touches the woman inappropriately, I think just on her butt or something, and the woman turns around and beats him up. And okay, that's fine. But then the elevator stops and it opens, and the guy's kind of on the ground a little bit, and the woman's like, "Oh, how about you stay out of the elevator here? We're gonna go up to the top floor, and I'm gonna take care of this guy." Okay, now there are serious problems with this, and I want to address it because I'm going to call this the dangerous elevator problem. So, this isn't real for a lot of reasons. First of all, sure, maybe the girl in the initial stages could get the upper hand on the guy. Take him, kick him in the nuts, doesn't matter how you take him out. But you can probably injure him a little bit right at the beginning. However, you're ignoring the major problem with this issue If you are a woman, and it's horrible that anything like this ever happened to anyone, and some that I worry about. I have several daughters, some that I worry about might happen to one of my daughters someday. But if it does, you should not stay in the situation that you found yourself in if you get the upper hand for a second. And I think in a lot of ways, society has kind of moved to the point where someone has won for a short amount of time and they're trying to extend their boundaries. You see that in feminism, um, which I think was a great thing to do. I think it was great that women got the right to vote and that they were able to gain some sort of independence of some sort. But the problem is, and this is where I'm going to use the dangerous elevator problem. You've won once, and think it will not change. Now let's actually talk about what could happen in an elevator. There is no woman on planet Earth, a highly trained woman maybe. By the way, this woman didn't look highly trained, and the guy didn't look super scrawny, so you got problems there already. But a highly trained woman and just an average guy, like if they get into a tussle, the guy is going to definitely take some licks. But the problem is has nothing to do with anything other than weight and muscle mass. Now, a woman can train her muscle, and I go to the gym because I'm trying to lose weight myself. But if I am using a machine after a woman, their settings are always lower than mine. I wouldn't say that I'm super fit or anything like that, but even the really fit women, their settings are always lower than mine, like from the weight that I'm going to lift. And I'm not bragging. That's not a brag because, like, when I go after guys, there's a lot of guys who definitely have weight higher than me by a long shot. But when I go after women, I always have to move it up. Um, because I'm just stronger. It's just genetics. It's how we were made as a civilization that allowed us to become as big and as powerful as we are, allowed us to overcome the elements, allowed us to overcome everything because of where we're at. So when I see and a woman just overtaking everything, getting that self-fulfillment, being self-inserted there, that is completely unrealistic. Like, I'm not saying I'd take on every woman that exists, but I could take on a good number of them, and I could beat them pretty handily. And so it's a very dangerous message to put out there that women can be anyone that they want, and it's a very inappropriate message because that woman going up to the top floor to keep beating on this guy, um, what if he gets up and he decides that he is not going to take it? That is going to be bad. That is going to be very, very bad for that woman because it is going to end badly, and um, it could end her death. And let's say she did just get the upper hand and she ends up murdering this guy. Well, hopefully she goes to jail for that. Doesn't matter that he touched her rear end or something like that. She did it, she went way too far on it. So you shouldn't do that either. So you can either stop, you can win the battle and not participate in the war. Because if you participate in the war, the odds that you come out unscathed is unlikely. And this woman was wearing heels and all sorts of things. That guy could have easily taken and swept her feet out from under her, taken her down, beat her senseless, a couple punches from a guy. And I just want to point this out here. When trans athletes started going into things. There was that whole at the Olympics, the women were boxing. And I remember one of them saying that when she got hit by this basically trans guy, and you can say whatever you want about it, but it's definitely this person definitely had male reproductive system parts, which shouldn't have happened. But when they got into a fight and they actually participated in that, she said that it was such a night and day sort of thing. It felt like she was getting hit by a truck. It was very different than when they were fighting with other women. So you can't, the problem that we're seeing, we want to meet emotional needs. We want to see someone who can beat up people, but that creates the fake world. there's not real people in that world. It takes us out of reality. As soon as I saw that elevator scene, it took me completely out of it. Sure, the girl may be able to beat him a little bit, but as soon as she wanted to go to the top floor to keep beating on him, that is not going to change. That's going to be a huge problem in the end. And as the more that we see this, the not realistic, um, the more that we're going to have problems. The more that we say that the world is this way, the world is that way, we have thousands of that upon thousands of years that say otherwise. And I remember back in the day they were saying, oh, we should have women who should participate in war as opposed to just men. And there were a lot of problems with that. And the biggest thing that you can do to really solve this sort of issue, stop pretending like reality doesn't exist. If you make a fake world, and you know, let's just make a fake world here. And I make a fake world where, guys can be as strong as girls, or sorry, girls can be as strong as guys, type of thing. You're missing what girls bring to the table, because the best, well-written women that I've ever seen in film or anywhere have been not the ones who succeed because of strength, but who succeed because they're smart, because they're clever. They don't necessarily have to win um, because of how strong they are. And if you look at, like, let's talk about the original, what's it called? Uh, Incredibles movie. That movie is great, and I'm going to compare it between the. In matter of fact, let's actually make this an effect. Um, Bad sequels. So you have the original Incredibles movie. Now, Bob was very strong, and his wife was really flexible, and she was able to figure things out. And she was clever, and she was smart. She didn't win with brute strength. She won because she was clever. And one of the things that I think about is like when they're fighting the big robot at the end, she doesn't just go straight at the robot and to beat it. But what she does, if you remember, that it's shooting this giant laser gun that's basically demolishing everything. No one can stand against it, not even Bob. It's beating everyone. And she takes and she pulls off a manhole cover and she swings it around on her arm and she holds it with her other arm and basically uses the elasticity of her body to basically make a lever and fire it. That was cool. Why was that cool? Because you didn't use something that was outside of her wheelhouse to win. She was flexible and she was able to accomplish what she could in a very small amount of time. She could fly planes. She could do this. She could do that. Those are all very realistic things that a woman could do, and she accomplished those things. And she wasn't Bob. She didn't go in. She wasn't able to, like, if you remember how Bob beat the first one, rip its head off with brute strength, crawl inside and let it tear itself apart. She didn't do that. But Bob was also smart and he was clever there at the end, and he was able to beat them in a very similar way. But and you see a little bit of that in the second one, but at the same time, you really see your superhero characters dumbed down. So let's talk about that. Characters who were intelligent and used their skills. They become competent and not using their skill set. So they were super intelligent, but for some reason, sequel comes. It's a backtrack. And when I saw The Incredibles 2, the very first thing that really bothered me was their battle with the Underminer. Like, they should have won that handily. And the reason why is because, and you can maybe have like a mix up where he gets away or something like that. But they had basically gone through Syndrome's Island. They were not a bunch of people who couldn't work off each other, didn't know how to do anything. They did know how to do things. They did know how to be successful. But here you're basically saying, nah, they're back to square one. Everyone hates supers again. Everyone this, everyone that. They're not good. We're stepping back. That was a poor choice. A better choice you could have had is have the superheroes come back. Like a lot of superheroes died, but have the superheroes come back. And this is just an idea. But when the superheroes come back, have some of them be bitter about all the crap that they basically got put through from Bob and from basically his original lawsuit, right? He was the cause of the problem, and have like some of them come back, but some of them come back as like basically super villains. That would be cool. Seeing something like that, old friends become bad people. But instead, you kind of went off on this thing where, these supers are coming back into being and getting back their powers, and new supers are coming out. By the way, the new supers, oh my goodness. The new supers basically, you could go back to this last um, part right back here, self inserts. They were so fake, they were so out there, unrealistic. Like Bob and Helen, they looked like actual people. Bob was a big guy, but you could see someone like that in reality. But these other new heroes, they're kind of dressing to stand out. It's like you would know these people otherwise, like on the street, because of how different they looked, and they were badly designed. And when I look at them, I can remember that one girl had like a swooshy hair thing, and one girl had this, one girl had that. It doesn't matter because they were so forgettable. And if you wanted to continue that, you needed to have new heroes that come out that were not forgettable. And that could have also been another thing. You have um Jack, what is his name? The two kids, Veronica and Jack. No, no, Jack's a little kid. Whatever the boy's name is, doesn't matter. I can't really remember. The speed guy. They were pretty dang good characters. Have them enter the world of superhero sort of situation. Have them start to learn how to participate with other superheroes. Have them start to build up. Oh my goodness, what a great show! Their first foray into like actual superhero work. But instead, you went with Helen. Why? She's already a superhero. We don't know what she can do. But then you went, and not only that, but you made her dumb. Like the fact that she got caught by screen slave or whatever so quickly at the very beginning of the movie is, or like midway through the movie, is absolutely stupid. Like she would have figured that out really quick. But no, she was dumb. She was dumbed down so far below her actual skill set that it was bad. And not only that, like you wanted her to be some sort of boss babe, which is another huge problem. Makes bad sequels. You take your original hero from your first one and you basically put him out to pasture. Oh my goodness. The Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, that show. Oh my goodness. You, oh, I cannot tell you how bad that show is in the amount of time that I want to spend on this. I could spend hours upon hours talking about that. Now, it's was so bad that the Crystal Skull, in comparison, looked good. Now, if you have a movie that everyone in general agreed this was below the standard that you set, and then you're like, well, we're going to double down, we're going to make this happen again. And I get why they were doing this Crystal Skull, and I get why it failed, because you basically took your main character and you were trying to make a new main character. In this particular case, Indiana Jones's son. You're trying to give him a happy ending, move on, in case you ever want to make more of these movies. And that's kind of a bad place to ever be. You see Marvel do that. They've done that so many times now. It's honestly ridiculous. But the problem with that is like we don't want to see beyond Indiana Jones. We came for Indiana Jones. That's why we came to watch the movie. He is the main character. And there were a lot of good moments in there of Indiana Jones. But I mean, you had the fridge moment and a couple other things that just kind of broke immersion. which weren't great, but you also had some moments where he was definitely fighting like he used to, and that was great. So you got these two different dichotomies going on. That was a bad sequel, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it was okay. The main bad guy being a woman Nazi, I think was not great. You could have gone a lot of different directions there, but I think you should have given up the Nazis. We weren't fighting Nazis anymore. They were long dead. I think maybe a Soviet Union would have been good. Was she Soviet Union or was she Nazi? I think she was Nazi, but or a Chinese. But of course, they can't ever go against the Chinese because they got to sell it in China. But I think the Chinese would probably be more fine with it than you think they might restrict the movie. But I think that you'd get a lot of people in the other ground really take hold of that. But you can't upset the Chinese market. Okay, whatever. But you got to find someone who's a good counterpart to Indiana Jones when you can't have the Nazis anymore, right? They're dead and gone. So you can't keep using them. But, you know, as soon as you take and replace a male character in a male dominated film, you need to just make a different franchise. You cannot keep using the same franchise. Dial of Destiny tried to do it. Oh, it crashed and burned so bad. Incredibles tried to do it. Incredibles 2 tried to do it. Oh, it crashed and burned so bad. Um, and you have not seen any more of talk about any movies, the Incredibles line. You've not heard talk of any more movies in the Indiana Jones line. In other words, those two movies died because of this whole Boss Babe thing. The sequel was so bad that you killed your franchise. You took something that was worth thousands, if not millions upon millions of dollars, and you sacrificed it on the altar of the Boss Babe. It is a sad state of affairs to see something like that. So, how do we fix this? Well, can we not use women in there? No, you can use women in there, but you can't use women the way you've been using women. Um, Women needs to be used organically. They can't be used inorganically. Um, Maybe you could see Black Widow take down a few men, but as soon as you see an untrained person fighting off waves of very much trained people, and this was a very much a Ray Palpatine situation. She was not used organically at all. Another one that honestly, kind of the beginning of this, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like this idea, but when I think back to the Legend of Korra, like, let's think about what made Avatar, The Last Airbender so good. Like, he was a weak, uh, pretty pathetic kid. He was so afraid of becoming Avatar that he ran away from his duties. It caused severe problems for his entire thing. And he had to train a lot to get anywhere near good enough to be able to defeat the Fire Lord by the end. I just watched that with my middle daughter, and she loved it, but I'm never going to show her the next one. And you ruined it like in like the first little while when baby Korra basically comes out and can already use all four elements. You've basically taken the journey, which was the best part about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Him having to work to try to get from one place to another, the things that he experiences, the ways that he's slowly learning. You've taken that and you've cut it. You've broken out every single inch of it. There's not a segment of it left. So, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is that, first of all, she's a boss babe. She can do no wrong, this and that, right? And she does do some things wrong. And there are some things, so I'm not going to say it's all bad. There are good parts in that, but it's not the same. You've basically said, well, this person's better than the last person. But the problem is, we liked the last person. And as soon as you take something that we liked and you say, well, this is better, so you should like this more. When I was growing up, my parents made wonderful, they opened up a box of mac and cheese and they fed it to me, okay? And I liked it. And now, let's say that I go to Italian restaurant. They feed me the best Italian meal ever, right? And they say, now you can't like mac and cheese anymore. Well, what's the problem with that? The problem is that I liked mac and cheese. I still do. I've had great Italian food. I like great Italian food. But I can't say that because I like one, I can't like the other, right? But you're basically saying you should like this more. Well, that's perspective, right? I'm not going to necessarily like this more. You can't take what you have and bad, and this is huge bad sequels. Can't take what you have, not use things organically. You can't make me hate what I like. You can't do that. You can't take what is loved about something, take it out, and expect me to still love it, right? For instance, let's say um, you're like, oh, let me make you some mac and cheese. And I'm like, great, I love mac and cheese. And I go into the kitchen, and on my plate are some noodles with some meatballs on it and some other things. Maybe I like that. But no, we're not saying that. Let's say I go in there and you, instead of putting butter in it, because I love butter, right? Everyone loves butter. It's hard to not love butter. You replace it with margarine or some sort of coconut oil substitute. Oh goodness, this would be awful. So I took it and I replaced it with coconut oil. Well, that's not mac and cheese anymore, now is it? All of a sudden, that's got a strange coconut taste to it, to my mac and cheese. And let's say I didn't put it in the packet either. Let's say instead, I found some packet of vegan mac and cheese. So it's like some sort of different cheese that doesn't really taste like cheese. You know what I'm talking about if you've ever tried stuff like this. And you're like, here's your mac and cheese. Well, I'm going to take a bite of that, and I'm going to be honest with you. And by the way, I give you this example because this has happened to me before. I don't like it. I didn't like it before. I don't like it now. And I'm not going to like what you make in the future if you're going to continue to cook like this. We like what we like. We have our tastes. And when you're like, well, it doesn't have what you like in it, but it's still the same thing, it's not anymore. You changed it to its core. It is different. And I think that a lot of Hollywood people don't get this. A lot of regular people don't get this, and it makes bad sequels. Always will. You ruin your franchises. And so let's actually talk about ruining franchises. I think that would be a good next effect. And we're going to start the first cause, the biggest cause about this is ripping out the heart of the franchise. There are cores to things, cores to movies, things that make it tick. Let's go ahead and let's take Avatar: The Last Airbender because we've already talked about it. What was the core of that TV show? That none and oh my goodness, there's a new Netflix thing out. I'm not even gonna watch it. I've already heard that it's bad, and there's all these things. If you think about the M. Night Shyamalan movie that was bad, and I actually took some time and I was talking to my daughter about this, and she's like, "Oh, hey, did you know there's this movie that came out of the last Avatar: The Last Airbender?" I was like, "Yeah, it's bad because I ripped out the heart of it." And let's just take one example. Sosaka, guy with um, great humor, excellent humor. That was what his core defining characteristic was. I think about the time when he's stranded in a hole and that little animal's like kind of being cute around him. And he basically says, if you let me out of this hole, I won't eat meat ever again. And as soon as the avatar shows up, the first thing he asks him, do you have any meat? I mean, absolutely hilarious. His comedic timing is perfect. The things that he says, great. He is basically the heart and soul of it. So what they do in the remake, the M. Night Shyamalan remake, they ripped that out. Sokka is a serious, no nonsense guy all of a sudden. He does not participate in anything if it's not going to be serious, and it was awful. That character died on the table right then and there. Um, and it's really funny when you are watching the show, the right before Sozin's comic comes, they're sitting down, they're watching the play where they're making fun of basically the Avatar's entire party. And, they're exaggerated versions of them. But the people who didn't, weren't too worried about it, or the people who seemed to fit most, was Sokka's character, even though his punchlines were like really down low. I think his only punchline was is that he was hungry and he wanted meat. But one of the funniest lines was when he was like, um, when he's talking to Yuki, who eventually becomes the moon, and he's like, "You're the only woman who has ever made me not think about food." That was absolutely hilarious because that was a big part of him. And, the actors may not have gotten everything, but they understood that one thing, and that one thing was great. Um, but when you take and you think, well, the writers before didn't know what they were doing. So, no. They have no respect for the previous writing team. You're basically saying that I am better than what was here. And honestly, so I'm going to talk about um, the new three Star Wars films, the Ray Palpatine films, I should say. I'm going to be honest. I watched the first one. I thought it was okay, but it didn't really capture me like the original Star Wars did, or even the prequel ones, and that's terrible to say. I mean, they were coming out when I was a kid, but to think when the prequels came out, I thought those were great because they were Star Wars brought back, and a lot of people had a lot of problems with them. And looking back, I see a lot of problems with them, but that had the same heart. It, and George Lucas was the original writer. He knew where it was going, and I think he even abandoned a few things because of negative things that he got back from it. And I've seen a lot of theories that people have come out with, and some of them are pretty dang good. But you don't see that with these current ones. I don't see anyone making a single theory about what might have been from the current Star Wars films. They don't exist. And the reason why is because no one cares. You basically taken a film and you've made something that no one cares about, because you took the heart of Star Wars, which was basically a space opera, something where you have your main character who overcomes adversity and everything like that, and basically is able to bring back evil to good. But in those ones, holy schmoly, uh, Ray never had to overcome adversity. Sure, she may have had a few setbacks here and there, but she never had to overcome adversity. She was perfect from the beginning. She was a Mary Sue. That was bad. They took and they ripped the heart out of that franchise. Think about Luke. Luke was a poor farm boy with nothing, and he rose above it. And his only skills probably were dirt farming. Gross. That's not going to help you as being a hero, and being able to fly planes. Those were his like two known skills. And by the end, he had a lot more skills because he went through the Force. He blew up the Death Star. He had all sorts of things. He became a hero, and that was absolutely amazing. But I mean, we're going back down here even, and I want to just go back down here real quick, where they took characters, they were intelligent and things like that, and they took Luke and they butchered that man in the second film. In the first film, like, there might be reasons for him to be out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe he was trying to find a way to bring his person back. Maybe he couldn't find a way, but he didn't want to fight the people that he trained. You could think of a bunch of different reasons why Luke was hiding out there. But because he'd given up, that was a bad reason. You changed him. You tore at that point. That was a point. The first one you can kind of get away with things, but the second one, you just ripped the heart out of the franchise right there, right then and there. And honestly, after I saw that first few scenes of the second one, I got so bored. I will admit, and I wasn't in the theater. I didn't watch in theaters because my parents had it. So I tried to watch it a little bit with them, but I will admit, at that point, or I might have watched it on Disney Plus, I don't remember. It became to the point where I was done. I was finished. I never watched the third film. I heard how bad it was. I never even went and saw it. I don't think I ever will. Because in my mind, those films don't exist. Because they're so far removed that it's basically like, if you can think about it in the Marvels, where they go to different universes. That's a different universe's problem. That's not my problem. That doesn't exist here, and that's how bad it was. But that was the last time I watched anything Star Wars. Haven't watched anything since, um, which is terrible. I mean, I've heard there's some good things, but I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to go through and see those things because you tore the heart out of it. It's gone. It's dead. You killed it. You took a billion, and I will say billion in this case. You took $1 billion franchise. You took that and you killed it. You killed its fan base. You ruined the franchise. You thought you were better. You thought you were better than what came before, and you thought that you could do better, and you were wrong. You were wrong. That's the problem with modern day writing. You're not respecting what came before. Let's talk about respecting what came before. When you see writers write things and they're good, they write about things before. Let's think about one of my favorite writers, Shakespeare. Goodness gracious, he wrote some of the best plays of all time. Why were his plays good? Well, there's a huge claim that a lot of it was plagiarized, but he put his own spin on it. I don't care. That was so long ago. If he could take something that wasn't that great and change it into something that was amazing, honestly, good for him. Um, he did it and he succeeded, and that is great stuff. But you don't see, I don't hear people using Shakespeare quotes or things like that anymore unless they're trying to one up someone nowadays in movies or TV. But back at the time, like I think about Star Trek: The Next Generation, where that was like huge classical literature used all the time in that. Um, and it was a great show because they understood that there were writers before them that were better than them, but they were also able to adapt it into a futuristic sort of situation. And that just improved it so good. And I remember coming home from school as a little kid, and we had like one channel, but I would try to make it home as quickly as I could to sit down and watch that one show, which just tell you how good it was. I mean, little kid me, and I went back and watched it pretty recently, probably like I would say a couple months ago. Started watching it and watched all the way through, and it was amazing some of the things that I could still remember about it. And I think some of the things that really stuck with me were the story about Data and like the different things that he had to go through trying to become more human-like, because that's something that we all don't may not want to say that we go through the severe changes of becoming a better person, but some of the things that we do go through. And one of the ones that really surprised me was one where Data basically gets in a relationship with a woman, and you may think that that's absolutely insane, and I agree. But he started like he made like routines and things like that. But the woman just realized that it wasn't quite right. It wasn't quite real. And Data also knew that it wasn't quite real. He was just making a poor imitation of it. And it was absolutely heartbreaking because at the very end, she's like, I think we need to stop. But Data has no feelings. He has no understanding. She actually had feelings for him. But when she says, I think that we need to stop, Data is like, okay, I'm going to remove all these parts of myself that I've written. It shows that he was trying, but he couldn't actually meet her needs. And it's heartbreaking. And that was one of the Data things that I didn't remember, but like it had real set up real foundations. You really saw him trying, and the fact that he wrote a whole subroutine and things like this is absolutely amazing. But just the cause that in the end it just ended there is crazy. But that's another thing. So they, and that also goes along with ripping his heart out. Like that woman loved him, and he tried to love her, but he basically had to rip his heart or her heart out at the end because it wasn't real. Nothing was real about it. But and they understood that, and they were able to point to it and say that this was what it was. Uh, Now, Star Wars or Star Trek, I should say, that thing's down in the dumps at this point. I wouldn't watch a single thing of that either. Goodness, it's like nothing is made for me to watch anymore. But anyway, let's talk another reason ruining franchises. Obviously, for the money and want to reach, and this is really interesting, the larger audience. Okay, I'm going to address this and then I'm going to call it. There is no larger audience, no larger audience that can pay money anyway. You want to meet the audience that exists already. The problem is they want to reach an audience that's larger than what they have for quarterly reports or anything like that. But what they're doing is they're trying to reach something. Uh, Meeting the larger audience means that I got to change this, got to change this, got to change this. You're ruining what you have. You always will ruin what you have, and you got to be smarter about it. So anyway, um, suggestions on how to fix this. Write to what exists already. You may be bored about it, but you need to understand the characters. You need to watch the material. You need to like the material. If you don't like the material, why are you writing for it? It's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Um, let's go back through. I'll kind of explain this. Stop over explaining things. It's completely unnecessary. People will watch what they like to watch. Stop putting in self inserts. It's bad. Stop making bad sequels because you're putting in your self inserts. You're doing this. You're ruining your franchises. And, just when you have a product, don't throw it in the trash. Keep it for what it is. Don't take things and just ruin it. That's how good movies are made. And you're starting to see good indie movies be made because they understand things. They're not trying to just throw stuff away. Anyway, this movie's already gone on, or this video's already gone on long enough. Um, when you write, because I know that there are a lot of writers out there, try to write to things that make sense. Don't just live on your high horse. Go out and experience things. Don't live in a bubble. And I think that as long as you're living in a bubble, you'll never understand any of this. You'll never understand a word of what I'm saying. But as soon as you're willing to step outside and accept other people's ideas, accept other people's things, that you are not the best, that you have things that you can learn, your writing will improve tenfold. Anyway, that's it for me, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.